سبيل الدموع سبيل مريح تنهد يا صاحي كي تستريح.
الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين ونبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. أما بعد, السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. So we are going to have a prayer break for Asr, and keep in mind we have an interfaith event going on. So we have non-Muslims in the masjid right now, and they will be here, other than the brothers who are here from the Bayana League, but a specific interfaith event, and they will be observing us during prayer, right? So please make sure we all have to make sure that we are model Muslims for them when they're here and make them feel welcome as well, because there have been times when we went to churches and they make us feel very welcome, like it's at home. So we should try to do our best as well, inshallah. Today's topic is prayer. The HDMI cable is not here, but that's fine, because when I covered the first lecture of prayer with the soccer league, we only covered 2 slides the entire lecture. And there's a reason behind that. Because when it comes to prayer, we have a lot of questions. The first thing is that the question arises that, well, if I'm doing something right or if I'm doing something wrong. Like, am I doing it right or wrong? Because the guy next to me is praying differently. The girl next to me is praying differently. So the question comes, okay, am I right? Is he right? Or is someone wrong? If someone is wrong, then who is wrong? And sometimes the case may be that you are both right. And so how do we know that? How do we determine that we are both right? Well, that's when it comes down to difference of opinions. And the first thing we need to understand is that what is a difference of opinion? In Islam, when we say a difference of opinion, it doesn't mean that it's Said Khan's opinion and Junaid's opinion. We're not relevant. It doesn't matter about us. When we say difference of opinion in Islam, we're talking about scholars that came, that mastered the knowledge of the religion. They heavily invested themselves in learning everything about the religion throughout their entire lives. In fact, they sacrificed their life. They sacrificed their lives to learn more about the religion, to make it easy on us. These are the scholars who had differences of opinions. So let me give an example. Let's say we have scholar 1, and we'll call him by his actual name, Imam Abu Hanifa, rahimahullah. And we have scholar 2, we'll call him by his actual name, Imam Shafi'i, rahimahullah. Imam is a title we give to these people. So actually their name is Abu Hanifa and Shafi'i. So there's 2 scholars, and both of these scholars were amazing people of the past who were very pious, or pious predecessors, and they learned a lot about the religion. And they, after learning it, they wrote books on it, and they taught us how we should carry out the religion. And it's not from their own feelings or their own whims that they're like, you know what, I feel like you guys should pray like this because Allah will like you better. It's not like that. How did these scholars come about these things? These scholars lived around the time of so we have the Prophet ﷺ, the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and then he had companions, meaning the people who were around him the entire time. And then before they passed away, those people taught the religion to people around them. We call them the tabi'een. And then those people taught the people after them. And that's how the knowledge of Islam is passed along the lines. So during this chain, we have scholars in the earlier times. Imam Abu Hanifa, according to some, is a tabi'i, meaning he was there, he learned from a sahabi himself. But this shows how close they were. For example, it's like me having children, and my children's children, and their children's children. So if my great-grandkids were to say, my great-grandfather said this, you might believe it. Because you're like, you know what, that's the time frame is very near, and it could have been that it was passed along from there. Now if there's a missing information somewhere, like, oh, I didn't have kids to begin with, and someone's like, oh, well, I knew him, now you might have some questions. So these scholars, that's how they derived their knowledge. So it went back through an authentic chain of narrators. When I say narrators, I'm talking about the people who lived. So my kids, he's a narrator. His kid, that's a narrator. His kid is a narrator. And they're going to say, my father said that, his father said that, his father said that, Sayyid said this. You see how this flows? This is how we have hadith. This is how we have narrations in Islam. The topic is prayer. But I have to give this background information because it's really important for us to understand this. Now, question comes, okay, what if he's lying? What if the guy's lying? What if the kid is lying during that time? That can happen, right? Someone can just say, oh, my great-grandfather, I'm related to him by blood. You can see we're related. I'm saying he's saying this. Believe me. Right? This is where criticism comes in hadith. And a lot of these things. So during the time, we're in a weird time where people, we don't really trust them by their words. In fact, we have to have a legal document. We can't even have verbal agreement nowadays. We have to have someone sign a piece of paper. And even that people can be framed in those situations when you have those clauses on the bottom of the agreement. We've come to such a time where we really cannot trust people around us, right? It's so hard to trust a company or a group of people or an organization because you don't know what they're really standing up for. But in the past, the word you gave was everything. Imagine you're in a society, right? We're in a society right now, and let's think about the Muslim society. If a Muslim, were to go outside, right, publicly and drink in front of all the uncles and aunties, imagine how much he would be put on the spot. Everybody would be talking about his family, right? Everybody would be talking about him, right? It would be crazy, like this kid was doing this. His entire honor would be gone. His family's honor would be gone. We understand this, right? That's exactly how it was for lying in the past. If you went back on your word and there was even an accusation or and it was proof for you going back on your word, your family would be you would have so much dishonor upon yourself. It's like the analogy I'm giving of us right now drinking in public. Because if I were to say, if you lie right now, people will go crazy. You'll be like, no, they're not. I've lied all my life. It's not a big deal now, which is a problem, but it doesn't mean that it wasn't a big deal back then. So, with all this at stake and the love the companions had for the Prophet ﷺ, how do we know they had this love? Because they went to jihad, they went to war, they risked their lives, and in fact they lost their lives and became shaheed. Right? So we know that there's a lot of love. We know there's a lot of reality and truth behind what they really said. But that's the information that came, that's how we know the information is authentic, and that's how scholars derive the information from Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. So now we can say, okay, so the information came from a reliable source, which is the Prophet. Now, why is there differences then? Scholars say that there are differences of opinions to make the life easier upon us, people like you and me. Because not everyone can do the same thing, or not everyone is accustomed to the same thing. Let me give an example. The Quran is recited in more than one way. Some people recite Malik Yawmiddin, right? And some people recite Malik Yawmiddin, and they're both correct. They have different reciters. It doesn't mean you can just recite the Quran however you want, but there's different styles of recitation. When it came down to it, Umar radiallahu anhu, who was actually a companion, meaning he was alive when the Prophet was alive, he asked a guy next to him, they said an ayah, and let's give the example of me, I'll use Junaid again. Junaid recited an ayah like Malik Yawmiddin, and I recited Malik Yawmiddin. I got super mad, because I'm like, Junaid, you're saying it wrong. There's no way you're saying it wrong. I mean, there's no way you're saying it right. I'm saying it right, because I heard the Prophet say it like this. So what do? I grab Junaid and I take him to the Prophet. That's what Umar, the companion Umar, he did that to the other Sahabi, other companion. They went to the Prophet, and then Umar went to the Prophet and he said, he's saying the Quran wrong. Imagine how big of a claim that is to say that someone is saying the Quran incorrectly. Because, oh Prophet of Allah, you taught me like this. So I'm going to complain to somebody and I'm saying that Junaid is saying it incorrectly. There's no way, because you taught me. I personally learned from you. What did the Prophet say? The Prophet ﷺ said that I taught Junaid like this and I taught you like that. Which shows from that example we can take that the Prophet, peace be upon him, taught different people in different ways. So long as the authenticity is there, we can have reliance upon it. Also, we will be praying Asr Salah in Jamaat today, so keep that in mind. So we have these scholars who have different things. So when you're praying, you see the guy next to you sometimes raising his hand all the time, but then you're not raising your hand. Or their finger is up the entire time and your finger just goes up once, right? You're like, someone's hand is down here, your hand is up here. So you're thinking, okay, what's going on? We're going to cover all of that. And Soccer League already finished covering all of that. But we're going to cover all of that, inshallah. But it's important to understand that these differences of opinions, whenever someone says there's a difference of opinion, they're talking about legitimate scholars who established the jurisprudence. What is jurisprudence? The rulings of Islam. And they came down to it and they said that, I believe from my sources it seems like it is this. And the other one say, oh no, I believe from my sources it is like this. And keep in mind, nowadays we have our differences of opinions to make our lives easier. Because we're like, I don't want to do that, so I think this is okay. When they did it, they solely did it for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make sure that no one follows the religion incorrectly. Like their sincerity was so high. How do you know someone is actually sincere? When their names are being mentioned years and years after they've passed away. There's a scholar, his name is Bukhari, rahimahullah, Imam Bukhari. When he died, there was only one person in his janazah. The people of his own town disliked him at that moment because of the rumors that spread. It seems like he died in a bad state. You got one person at your janazah, your own people dislike you because of the rumors going around. It seems like you're not sincere at all. You might be a bad person. Where in fact today, everybody is saying, narrated by Bukhari, referred to in Bukhari. Everyone says, muttafaqun alayh, it's mentioned in Bukhari and Muslim. Bukhari, if his name is mentioned by so many people all over the world, that's how you know his work is sincere, because if your work is sincere, Allah will preserve it. If your work is sincere, God will preserve it for all of us. So we have the scholars who came down to the difference of opinions. So when we learn about these things, we need to be mindful. We need to be respectful of one another as we carry out about our lives in the difference of opinions. Now there is a difference between right and wrong, and right and something else that is also right. Let me give an example. If someone were to pray with one foot up, like like hopping on one leg or something, that's wrong. That's not in the sunnah. That's not in a difference of opinion. That's incorrect. Versus someone who prays with their hand to the side, that's correct. That's Imam Malik, rahimahullah, his school of thought. And these schools of thoughts come from, I mentioned two names earlier. I mentioned Abu Hanifa, that's his name. We refer to him as Imam Abu Hanifa. I mentioned someone else. I mentioned Shafi'i, rahimahullah. We refer to him as Imam Shafi'i. Imam meaning the leader, the person. Then we have Imam Malik, another Imam. And then we have the fourth Imam, Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal. 4 Imams. That's where we have the 4 schools of thought. They did not make up their own schools. They didn't say that, okay, I'm Imam Shafi'i, I'm going to make a school called Shafi'i School of Thought. That did not happen. That did not happen. What happened was, these people did their best to follow the sunnah of the Prophet, follow the traditions of the Prophet ﷺ and the Quran and its rulings. People around them became so infatuated with them, they were like, you know how you see someone, you're like, this person has to be doing it correctly. The amount of effort they put into it, their dedication, their sincerity, they have to be doing it correctly. Well, that's what it was. The people around them became so engrossed about them, they saw that, you know what, the work they're putting in, it has to be right. So after Imam Abu Hanifa, after he passed away, the school of thought came from him, meaning it became to be known that, you know what, Imam Abu Hanifa did it like this, and he has good reason to do it because he learned it from this person, and this person, and this person learned it from Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. Remember the example I gave earlier, the grandchildren and children, similar to that. So that's how the schools of thought came about. So it did not come from their arrogance. They had none, but the fact that they were so good at what they were doing, people followed their way. And whose way did they follow at the end? We have to make sure that we are following someone specific. At the end of the day, they're following the way of the Prophet ﷺ, right? So keep that in mind. And when it comes to difference of opinions, be mindful of other people. Don't rush into saying that you're wrong or I'm right. First, say, that is something new to me. Let me check to see if that is correct. What if I'm doing something incorrectly? Do you see how we pose the question? We start off by saying, what that person is doing is something that's new to me. I have not seen it before. I wonder if he's doing it right and I'm doing it wrong. Let me go find out. It shouldn't be that guy is weird, he's standing out, he must be wrong. We shouldn't think like that. Always put the question on yourself first. Inquire, ask legitimate sources, ask your imams from your local masajids, from your local mosques, and then find out. So, as we don't have the HDMI cable, so I apologize for that. But we'll be moving pretty quickly, inshallah, until Salah comes in, which is at 4:30. So, every time I said we come across a new topic, I give a reference from the Quran. I give authenticity behind why we're doing it. Well, there's an ayah in Surah Al-Baqarah, ayah number 238. So chapter 2, verse 238. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that, maintain with care the obligatory prayers and in particular the middle prayer, and stand before Allah devoutly obedient. Sorry, this is support system came in. Allah is saying that protect your prayer, especially the middle prayer, and stand before Allah devoutly obedient. He's giving a command. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving a command. He's not saying that just try to do your best to pray. He's not saying that. There's a difference between what is optional and what is obligatory. Allah's giving a command. He said maintain it. He didn't say, hey, try to maintain it. Hey, do your best. No, maintain it. Maintain your prayer. Protect it. Hafidhu. The word is hafidhu. You know when we have someone who memorizes the Quran, we call them a hafiz? Why do we call them that? Because they're protecting the Quran by memorizing it. Hafiz is the one who protects. So Allah says in this Quran, in this ayah, protect your prayer. Because you want to maintain it. What does that mean when we're saying protecting the prayer? That means that we schedule our day accordingly. We schedule our day around the 5 prayers. We schedule our day to a point where we do not miss any prayers. So what does that mean? Even in further detail, it means that we go to sleep at a time where we can wake up not to miss Fajr. Right? We have enough sleep. We make sure we have enough sleep so we don't take a nap and miss Asr. Right? This is what it means to maintain prayer. We maintain prayer by taking a pay cut in our job to work for a company who might give us time to go pray. We maintain that by being brave in our company and asking the HR department, hey, can you put in a prayer room? Because in my company they have that. They have a prayer room. Sometimes this is what it means to maintain, protect your prayer. Right? So that's the ayah. Again, ayah number 238 in Surah, in the 2nd chapter of the Quran. So now we're going to go into the logistics and we're going to cover a little bit more on that. The first thing that's mentioned is that when is prayer obligatory? The ayah said maintain your obligatory prayers, right? Which is Fajr, Zuhr, Asr, Maghrib, Isha. When is prayer obligatory? When 3 things are accomplished. The first thing is Islam, meaning you believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So if you're in this room and you believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? You have belief in the fact that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the Prophet of Allah, was the last messenger of Allah. Then you have Islam. Point number 2, you have to be baligh. What does baligh mean? Meaning you hit puberty. So if you're in this room and you have the first one down and you hit puberty, you're almost there. The last thing left is intellect. It doesn't mean you have to have a 4.0 GPA or you have to have a high IQ. Intellect refers to aql. So for example, there are people with mental retardation, right? They do not have intellect. That's an illness that they have, right? And in its own form, it's a blessing. So they are not obligated to pray. Obviously, it does not make sense to be like you have that incumbent upon you. But for us in here, I can safely assume that almost all of us are covering all of this, because we do have non-Muslims in the next room next to us as well. But we have all hit puberty. We all believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the Prophet Muhammad is the last messenger. And we all have intellect. What does this also mean? It means that when you hit puberty, you should kind of have intellect. Right? If these 3 things are going hand in hand, when you hit puberty, you should have intellect. We feel we're in a country where intellect is supposed to come when you're at the age of 18. And even then, it's okay to make a lot of mistakes because you're still 18. And it's okay to make mistakes until you're 22. Actually, it's okay to make mistakes until you're married. Right? That's the way we think about intellect. We shouldn't have any intellect. Now, I'm going beyond, of course, the common sense of intellect, but I'm going a little bit more into our understanding in society, how we think of intellect. Intellect means that, oh, okay, I'm not mature enough, I'm not responsible enough, oh, I still live with my parents, so I don't have any intellect. Like, I can't figure things out on my own. That's incorrect. We take so little responsibility, including myself, I'm talking to myself first. We take so little responsibility upon ourselves when we're growing up that we're just thinking it's okay to be careless. It's okay because I'm still 17. It's okay because I'm still 20. It's okay, I might be 23, 24, but I'm not married yet, so it's okay for me to be a little irresponsible. It's as if, so we make it seem like, oh, we'll become responsible when we get married. Then it makes marriage look like a negative thing, like, oh, I gotta be all serious and boring now. No, you gotta be serious and boring your entire life. That's what you are as a Muslim. You're responsible. I'm responsible. We're all responsible, right? Because the companions, the men who were around and the women who were around the Prophet, peace be upon him, when did they go into war? When they were in their teens. They fought when they were in their teens. We can't even get a part-time job. But they fought when they were in their teens. They were so responsible. They were so mature. So we should come to a point where we're thinking that, you know what, I need to stop myself starting. I need to stop making excuses for myself to say that it's okay, mom and dad are taking care of me. It's okay, I don't have anyone to take care of right now. It's okay. No. That means Allah blessed you. You're privileged. It doesn't mean you can chill. It means you have privilege. What should people with privilege do? Take care of people who don't have that privilege. If you have so much privilege to hang around and chill, take that time and give that time to somebody else who needs your time. Take that time and give back to the community. Take that time, if you're someone who's older in the group, in the audience right now, and you have time to spare, or you feel like you should, because you know something about your life makes you feel entitled to that, because you're privileged. You should take some time out of your week and find a youth you can connect to. Help someone. That's da'wah. If you're someone who's young and you feel like school is really easy because you get straight A's and everything is good and you have so much time on your hand, fine. Take extra time and learn something. Learn something about Islam. Come take an Islamic class somewhere. Go to Miftah or something. Make some time in your week. Do something with your day. The fact is, living in America, most of us in here, as men, we are privileged. Because we get to go out a lot. I mentioned this last time too. And we have a lot of privilege. What do we do with the ability, that as the privileged sense that we have to go outside and having all this capacity? What do we do with that? We go out to eat. That's about it. Or we go out to chill. That's about it. How much have we actually benefited other people? Even when we go out to eat, do we even pay for somebody else, or are we always paying for ourselves? That's sadaqah, when you pay for somebody else. So we have to think about it in a bigger picture when it comes to, and obviously I'm going on a tangent, and I did the same thing with the soccer league, and that's my thing. I like going on tangents because even my teachers go on tangents, because it's important to relate some of the things we learn about, even a small word like an intellect and puberty, and connect them and bring that back to us in our society, how we see that, how we see puberty and how we see intellect. Because there's no number. 18 is not a number. We don't care about 18. The only reason we care about 18 is because that's the legal age of America, and that's about it. Other than that, it doesn't really affect us. Beyond that, it's on our measures. It's how much we can do. It's how much we can take upon ourselves. I have mentioned in the slide the next thing as the 5 obligatory prayers. Why did I mention it? It's because not everybody knows what's compulsory. And it's important to understand that. We have a sense of Islamic privilege too. Because we're born Muslims, so we feel like, okay, yeah, you're supposed to know these things. Who doesn't know there's 5 times to pray? Who doesn't know these things? So for me, I like starting from scratch because there's a reason we call this course Islam 101. It's not 201, it's not 302, nothing like that. It's 101. So it's important to hit all of these things and make sure that we all understand fully what is obligatory, what is optional, what is not. I don't want to. I hate the word optional. What is traditional, and what is nawafil. And we'll cover that. So the first prayer that we do is known as Fajr. It's in the morning, and we have the time for it ends at sunrise, but it's 2 rak'at. What is a rak'at? We'll cover that. Like we'll think of it as 2 sets. And with Soccer League, what we did is we covered the entire process of how to stand properly, how to go through every movement properly. Why is that? Because most of us in here, let me do this. Raise your hand if you know everything that you're saying in Salah. Raise your hand if you know all the words that you are saying in prayer. Like meaning-wise, like you actually know it. That's the problem. So if you don't know it, I had the same issue. I didn't know it. I didn't know what I was saying in Salah. I didn't know what I was saying in prayer. What do I do at that point? I focus on the physical aspect of prayer. Because if you don't know what you're saying in your words, you might just be it's like driving home from work. You do it every day, you can do it with your eyes closed. You guys know what I mean? People don't realize how quickly they get home from work because they're so used to making the same turns left and right and going to work. Try to see if you realize that about yourself. Because you know the same turns. You know if I'm going to hit this red light, I'm going to hit a green next. It's all in your head. It's processed. Similarly, prayer is processed in our heads too. How do we overcome that? Focus on the physical actions. Is my back straight? How are my hands? How is my knee? Right? How are my legs? How is my elbow when I'm going to when I'm going to prostration? So we'll cover all of that, inshallah, which probably won't be this week. If it is, that'll be great. But we'll try to move forward as much as possible. So I'll say the 5 prayers, and then we'll conclude for break for Asr Salah, because it's in about 3 minutes or so. So the second prayer of the day is Dhuhr, which is 4 rak'at. When I'm saying rak'at, just think of the word sets. So think of the word reps. You know, you guys go to the gym, you have sets and reps, right? So for Fajr, there's 1 set with 2 reps in it, right? For Dhuhr, there's 1 set with 4 reps in it. Asr, 1 set with 4 reps in it. Maghrib, 1 set with 3 reps in it. And Isha, 1 set with 4 reps in it. I'm sure everyone understood that language. There shouldn't be confusion about that. If you don't know, then maybe you should go hit the gym. I'm just joking. But try to ask me and I'll explain to you, inshallah, right? So with that, so these are the obligatory prayers, right? And then there's a second set in Fajr, which is called the Sunnah, the traditional, also 2 reps. Dhuhr also has 2 extra sets, 1 set before, 1 set after, 4 reps and 2 reps, so all total of 10. And Asr has 4 before, so a total of 8. Maghrib has 2 after, total of 5. And Isha has 4 before and 2 after, total of 10, just like Dhuhr. So if you guys are confused about what I'm saying, don't worry about it. It's hard for me to, because I don't have the display today, so it's hard for me to show that to you guys. But next week we'll cover it, or even I'll explain as much as I can after the Asr Salah. With that, I'd like to conclude for now for break. Let's go make wudu, get ready. Keep in mind again that we have an interfaith event taking place. We want to do our best to be model Muslims right now and make them feel welcome. Again, please make them feel welcome. Jazakallah khair. Let's conclude. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen wa salatu wa salamu ala ashrafil anbiya wal mursalin wa nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. If everyone could just come up, there's a lot of empty space. Also, it's a lot easier for you guys to hear me if you guys can move up from the back and fill up the gaps, inshallah. Jazakallah khair. So last thing we were talking about were the prayers and the sets and reps, right? I'm going to come back to that when we go over the physical actions of prayer, meaning how should we stand, how should we... Well, actually, you know what? Let me ask you guys, what would you guys prefer? Should I continue about talking about the logistics, or should I go about as in like facts, information, or do you guys want to cover how to stand, how to bow, how to prostrate first? Which one would you guys prefer, if you guys have a preference? Because basically what I would go towards next is talking about prerequisites of prayer, or I can tell you guys, or we can cover like the standing and the bowing and stuff. So up to you guys. Which part? Standing and the bowing and stuff? Okay, we can
Give us
cover that.
like general information, because a lot of people here don't even know like prayer, how to do it. Like
Yeah.
Start from the basics.
Yep. As in from the physical actions, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And what do you do? Like we're standing up here, so a lot of people probably don't know what you were doing standing up. and
Right,
stuff.
exactly. So before I go into that, I'm going to go into about 5:05 or 5 o'clock. I want to briefly mention something. There was a brother up here giving something called adhan, right? Does anyone know what he was saying when he said, Hayya ala salah, Hayya ala falah? Do you guys know what that means? It means rush, Hayya ala salah, meaning prayer. Salah is prayer. It means rush to the prayer. And then he says, Hayya ala falah, which means rush to success. When we're in a masjid, there are rules of the masjid, right? Similarly, when we go to work, we have to have formal attire, right? You have to wear the collared shirt and slacks or whatever, right? You can't go in there wearing a t-shirt to work. They have a specific day for jeans day even, right? When you're at school, there are rules to follow. We've been accustomed to this. Islam has rules in different areas, in different places. For example, in your house, you have your own rules. When we're in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's house, it's different. This is the Creator's house. So we have to follow His rules. When we hear commands, like I said again, there's a big part of Islam is understanding what a command is. The command is rush to prayer, rush to success. It's not saying, hey, try to make it to the last set, the last rep or last rak'ah. It's not saying that. It's saying rush to success. And what that means is saying it's for your benefit. You rush for your benefit, not to help anybody else. So when we hear command of the adhan going on, saying rush to prayer, rush to success, our first instinct should be to do that. It should be to go make wudu and come in line ASAP. Right? We shouldn't try to hold conversations. We shouldn't try to delay it. You're already in the masjid. You're not coming from home. We're already in the right environment. There's nothing else more that can be done to motivate us than hearing the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in His own house. Now, for people that might not pray, that's okay. We have Christians in here, non-Muslims in here who do not pray, right? But what did they do? They observed the prayer, right? They remained silent observing the prayer. If you go to somebody's house as a guest, we're very mindful and very quiet. We don't run around the house. We don't start talking about crazy stuff. We let the host entertain us, right? We go by their rulings. Similarly, if you're in the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and there's quote-unquote entertainment, as in i.e. prayer taking place, we should be respectful of that, right? Even if it's something you don't want to partake in. And that's a different question. So let's say the host gives you food at his house, you don't like the food. You're not going to just start talking trash about the food like, oh man, I hate this food, right? You're going to either take it or just take a little bit, or even not take it, just be quiet. We should at least learn how to be quiet. So hard for us to do sometimes. People are praying, even if you don't believe in God, you should at least respect the fact that you're at an environment. I'm talking to Muslims and non-Muslims right now, not just non-Muslims. This is going to the Muslims more than the non-Muslims right now. Have some respect for people who are trying to connect with their Creator. We should try to have some respect, adab, manners, because I'm sure we've been taught that as we grew up. Have respect for the people who are praying. Maintain yourself from speaking, having excess conversation when salah is going on. Out of the if not out of the fear for Allah, do it out of the respect of the people. If you're not fearful of Allah, then do it out of the respect that you have for your elders or the brothers around you. With that, I just wanted to give that reminder because it's very important. It's very important. We should know how to conduct ourselves in an orderly manner when we're in environments such as this. There's no excuse, right? If you're praying, pray. If you're not praying, remain quiet. Similarly, when you're at the court, if you're praying, pray, and you should pray. If you're not praying, remain quiet. Don't dribble the basketball. Don't dribble the soccer ball. Don't start shooting, or don't start kicking or shooting. Don't hold conversations. Doesn't it cross our minds? Don't we become scared? First of all, I'm not going to pray. If that doesn't bring you fear, then okay, people are gonna at least they're bothered by me. Do we not feel like a sense of annoyance for people around us? Or do we not even consider that? Is it that when it comes to other people, they annoy us so easily? But we can never be a nuisance. We can never be something annoying for other people. We're just so amazing. It's not like that. Self-check. Always self-check. Always self-check. Like I said earlier, when we're praying and someone's praying differently, we shouldn't be like, that guy's wrong. Instead, you should be like, that's new to me. I don't know what that is. Maybe I'm doing it wrong. Let me go find out. Always self-check when it comes to these situations. Coming down to it, the next part, as Ajubai said, we should know what we're doing in the prayer. And I said earlier, not everyone knows the translations, and that's okay, right? Does that mean you shouldn't try to know it? No, you shouldn't try to know it. But if you don't know it right now, it's okay, right? It's okay not to know. It's okay, but it's not okay not to want to know. Meaning, it's not okay to remain ignorant. It's not okay to want to be ignorant, right? So we'll focus on the physical aspects and move towards Arabic understanding later on as we move towards Islam 101. When we're standing, there's a few things. So let's cover that actually. The first thing that we should have is to be pure, right? We covered that. I can't talk about that anymore. There was an entire jeopardy on purity, right? So you guys probably have understood that pretty well. If not, ask questions. If you still don't get it, ask questions. If you weren't paying attention, if you missed it, ask questions. It's okay. It's not wrong to ask more questions, even if you ask the same question 5 times for every prayer. You want to at least get it down right. Second thing is covering the organs. So 1/4 or more should not be uncovered during this prayer. So for the guys, let's say, remember the two scholars I mentioned earlier? I mentioned one was Imam Abu Hanifa, that was one scholar. Another scholar I mentioned was Imam Shafi'i, rahimahullah. So both of those scholars, they have different opinions on what should be covered for men. For women, it's basically everything except the hands and up to the palms and the feet. Not the arms, the palms. Okay, for the woman. And then for the men, what needs to be, for the woman, that's all that can be shown. The palms, the feet, and the face, right? For the men, what needs to be covered is from the navel to the knees. Now, according to Imam Abu Hanifa, it's known that it's from the it's from the bottom of the navel to the bottom of the knee that needs to be covered. From Imam Shafi'i rahimahullah, it's from the top of the navel to the top of the knee that needs to be covered. So the question arises: why are these imams disagreeing on this? It's because of the Arabic word hatta, which means until. So the ruling is that until it reaches the knee. So Imam Shafi says, until it reaches the top of it. So it reached it, you're good. Imam Abu Hanifa says, no. Until means covering all of it. So therefore you should cover up to the bottom of the knee. But we understand that, so this is a small example I'm giving you guys. It's not a fit class, it's not a jurisprudence class, but I'm giving an example so we can appreciate why they had different opinions. So we need to understand, okay, based on whatever ruling you may follow, okay, or how do you even cover that all of it? Well, look at me right now. Look at all of us right now. Are we not all covered properly? There. It's very simple. But let's say, yeah.
So is this because back in when the companions, they didn't really care about the worldly things, but they didn't have a lot of clothes.
That's
right?
true.
And so they were having minimum clothes, so they had to cover minimum amount, right?
Yeah. So you have to keep in consideration that Islam is universal. Right? Just because we have a lot of jackets and cardigans and clothing and name brand stuff, it doesn't mean everybody that's poor out there has those same things to cover themselves.
But one more thing is,
Yeah.
when we pray, sometimes we have our butt cheeks.
That's
showing
exactly
up.
that was the next point. So that was the next thing I wanted to mention. One thing I don't like personally for myself is ever wearing t-shirts. I love the fact that I go to a university and I come to the masjid, and the fact that I go to work and I go to the masjid, because when I come to the masjid I look like this, okay? And when I go to work, I have a tie where I tuck in my shirt, right? So I'm never in an environment where my shirt is untucked. I don't like having that. That's a personal thing for me, because I know I'm going to be praying throughout the day. So if you're praying throughout the day and your organs should be covered. This by organs, sorry, I shouldn't say that. The word organ is not the right translation for this. In the book, it refers to as organs because they're translating under a different meaning. So that part of your body should be covered. That part of your body should be covered. So you should be mindful of what you're wearing. Remember the ayah I said at the beginning? Allah said, Hafidhu, protect your prayer. Maintain your prayer. Well, how do you maintain your prayer? I mentioned a few tips. This is the last tip I'll add to it, is that wear clothes that make sense to wear when you're praying. I mentioned earlier, when we go to work, we have an attire, right? When we go to a wedding, we have an attire. You wear suits, don't you? Right? Usually. When you come to prayer, you should have an attire. When you come to prayer, you should have an attire. And you should be mindful of what you're wearing. You should be wearing humble clothing, modest clothing. Yes?
You're saying above the navel or below the navel,
Yes.
to the knees.
Yes.
Does that mean that a person can pray without a shirt or a t-shirt?
No, because a shirt would not cover all of that. Unless you're wearing those. Do
No,
not wear crop tops.
Because the way no, because the way you're saying it is just below, the navel.
Yeah. So that would.
You haven't said anything about like a person wearing like a sleeve or a long sleeve or a top.
No. That goes under rulings known as mustahab. So what does mustahab mean? Does anyone know what mustahab means? Mustahab means, so I didn't cover that because this is again very general. We can go into the details, I love it, but if you guys want to. Mustahab refers to actions which are preferred. Hab means love, right? So which means if you do these things, it's better for you. So it's preferred to cover yourself as much as possible. So even though I said for the woman, it's that she should have only her palms showing and her face showing and her feet showing. Look at me right now. Right? Technically, I mean, other than the scalp and other than the hair and the neck, I'm covered as much as I can be. Right? It's preferred to do that. Right? There's a preference to it. Now, I'm covering the minimum, the bare minimum that we need to have. And if we cannot cover the bare minimum, then we need to start asking ourselves questions like, okay, there's a problem going on, right? So, so that's something we need to keep in mind. And also when it comes to rulings, this is something we have to be very careful about. Why was a ruling such as this? Why was a ruling such as that? So Rajubai made a very good point about why the clothing is very needed in terms of having that it's a small amount. But someone explain this to me. Someone explain this to me. Do you guys know what masa is? When you do a wudu over your socks? You guys know what that is, right? Some of you guys? So I have a question for the guys who know what masa is, when you wipe over your socks, right? Someone answer this for me. Why do you wipe over the top of your socks if the bottom of your feet is dirty?
Is it symbolic? Is it symbolic or something?
No. The ruling it's because it's a ruling. Literally. The Sahabi, the companion Ali radiallahu anhu, he said that if Islam was just based on rationality, if Islam was just a science, you know how you have like a science like biology, or like the scientific method, you have a hypothesis and you work your way down. Islam is not like that. If Islam was like that, and this is his saying, he said that, then we would be doing masah over the bottom of the feet, not the top of the feet. Because the bottom of the feet is dirty. You're stepping on things. You're not walking like this. You're stepping on things. There are things in Islam which are prescribed to us as a prescription. For example, saying that there are angels when we have never seen an angel cannot be rationalized to us in the sense that, hypothesis, I see, experiment, believe, I saw it, okay. No. Then in that case, the question comes down to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You've never seen Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? So, why am I mentioning this? It's very important for us to understand that not everything will have exact our rationality behind it. Actually, I won't be able to go into the actions physically because we have to conclude, but I would like to mention the last point of understanding that wisdom we have and morality. This is very important. So let's talk real seriously right now, okay? So right now in 2018, for many people, it's morally acceptable, I don't care about legally, morally acceptable to be homosexual, right? Morally, it's okay to do this. I'm not talking about Muslims or non-Muslims, I'm talking about in general in America, it's morally acceptable to do this. Islamically, it is not morally acceptable to be a homosexual. Now, question arises, I have to give a side point, I have to give back up to this. Does that mean we shun homosexuals? 100% no. We don't do that, right? We do not shun anyone. Homosexual actions are sins, correct? Similar to how drinking is a sin, how smoking is a sin, how fornication is a sin. These things are sins. So a drinker, an alcoholic, we don't shun an alcoholic, right? We hate the action that he or she does. We hate the actions that go into homosexuality. We never hate people. We never hate people. But in 2018, as a Muslim, Islam is not morally agreeing with you. Because you think maybe morally it's okay to be gay. Islam is saying morally it's not okay to be gay. And you can rationalize it to 500%, but the answer is, at the end of the day, the ruling remains the same. Because this is a ruling from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You can start wiping the bottom of your feet 5 times a day, but you will never have wudu, because you did not follow the ruling. Right? So for us, when morality comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when it comes to our wisdom, right? When it comes to our small wisdom that we have, we think something is good for us. And it's in the Quran. It says that you may love a thing and it may be bad for you, and you may hate a thing that it may be good for you. And I'm sure you've heard these ayahs many times. So we hate something that's going on in our life. We hate the snow. We hate the car accidents that are happening. But maybe that car accident is preventing us from death. You never know these things. Maybe 2 people crashing is preventing from 4 people crashing. We don't know these things. So the wisdom of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the wisdom of God, is beyond anything we can even imagine. For we don't even have control of our dreams. Right? So our wisdom, as great as we might seem sometimes, as wise as we might seem, as educated as we might seem sometimes, it's very minimal. Keep that in mind when we learn more about Islam. Because you truly cannot learn about Islam if your job is to just be very picky and just criticize. Islam, like anything in life, has to be observed with an open heart and open mind. So when we learn these things, yes, sometimes there will be answers. But don't freak out if there's not an answer. Because there's a bigger greatness to it, there's a bigger picture to it. When Adam, our father, was created in the heavens, his body was created, the angels asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, why are you creating him? Why are you making him a vicegerent? Why are you making him the ruler of the world? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, and they did not question Allah, they were curious. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told the angels, I know that which you do not know. Allah told the angels, I know what you don't know. Allah knows what the angels don't know. Because the angels knew that the humans, us, would cause havoc, would cause chaos in this world. But they're like, that doesn't make any sense. Allah, why are you making people who are going to cause more issues? You just wiped out most of the jinn kind. Why are you making it mankind? Allah says, I know that which you do not know. So keep that in mind as we move forward. Now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows that what we do not know. And when it comes to trials and tribulations again, maybe it's good for you even though you hate it. Keep that in mind. And if life is really good, then maybe it's bad for you in a way that you don't understand. And with that, I'd like to conclude. And inshallah, next lecture we'll cover the physical actions. I'm sorry I couldn't get to it today, but there are some things that need to be mentioned and noted as we move forward. Side points that are really crucial for us to understand. With that, I'd like to conclude. Subhanaka Allahumma wa bihamdik. Nashhadu an la ilaha illa ant nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. Jazakallah khair.